welcome to our talk about inner sourcing Albert Heijn's cloud framework. I am Zoe, I'm an engineer at the cloud DevOps team at Albert Heijn.
And I'm Marjan. I've been working for Albert Heijn for 4.5 years as an agile lead in the cloud services cluster within Albert Heijn.
Yep, and we would like to start with a bit of hand raising, if you can raise your hand. Have you ever contributed to an open source project? Well, a lot of hands, that's nice to see, really nice. But then the next question, have you ever contributed to an inner source project? Please raise your hands. Well, quite some hands, that's nice. Please come to us and we'll talk about the topic further after the presentation. But those who didn't raise their hands, that's also good because we're going to tell you what it is. Just in short, inner source is leveraging the benefits of open source within your enterprise organization. And that is really a global term, right? And before we are going to dive into that, I need to give you a bit more context about the company and about the cloud framework where we designed this upon. So most of you know Albert Heijn as a single supermarket brand, right? And well, actually Albert Heijn belongs to a bigger enterprise, which is Ahold Delhaize, and it has multiple brands across the globe. And in a while I'm going to tell you why this is important for our story. So you can see the flags here, but I have a more detailed view. And then all the images broke. That is a shame.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Well, you have
Albert Heijn didn't break, right? That's the good news.
You have to imagine that there are all pictures of all the brands that belong to Ahold Delhaize, and you might know Ethos or Bol.com. But Albert Heijn, it's the most important one, right? But Ahold Delhaize, you see some numbers. So, more than 7,000 stores in 9 or 10 countries all around the world, and well, more than 400,000 employees. And you can imagine that there are a lot of developers amongst those employees. And you have to do something with that. But then, the cloud framework. The cloud framework was something that we built. We started thinking about it 4 years ago already, and we had a lot of iterations. And I think 2 years ago now we started with a new framework. And this is built like this. You have to imagine at the image, that is the Dutch flag.
Yeah,
it's quite important.
There.
Yeah, the Dutch flag is the image that's not loading. And we, as the Dutch Albert Heijn Cloud DevOps team, thought of a cloud platform, cloud framework, and it's really basic explained in the picture, but I'm going to hopefully explain it a bit more to you. So the platform is constructed like you have a core layer which has core infrastructure, and that layer consists of policies, but also the connectivity part, role-based access, and this is the general stuff for everyone. And then you have the different landing zones. So here I've drawn 3 of them, but you can imagine that is unlimited. So you can have like 1,000 landing zones. And the landing zone is a package of infrastructure pre-configured for you, where you can develop your application in. So an application team of Albert Heijn can request a landing zone and have full autonomy of that. So they can build stuff in the landing zone and own it themselves. So there's no central operation team anymore. You have to ask for a VM. You can build it yourself in your landing zone. And all this code is stored in repositories on GitHub. So everybody can go to that code. So what then happened, we as the Netherlands, we built this, we were in production, and then other companies within Ahold Delhaize came to know of this framework. So what happened? More cloud frameworks, but attached to one base of code. So you have to imagine, it's a shame that the flags don't work, but the middle part is still the Netherlands, and then on the left you have the Belgian flag, and on the right you have the USA flag. So what we did was adjust the code, because we've built it only for the Netherlands, adjust it and made it possible to be able to scale it globally, so that the cloud DevOps team from the US also could build this core infrastructure and deploy their landing zones on top of it. But we didn't want to just copy-paste. So we decided that we do it on top of the code base we already had for the Netherlands. And yeah, that is quite a nice idea, right? To just have one piece of code and a lot of companies can make use of it. But then, yeah, we struggled a bit. We just went along and yeah, let's go to the next one, I think.
I will take over.
Yeah.
When there's struggle, I'll take over.
Yeah.
Okay, this is where our journey basically started, right? So we had interest from our Belgian colleagues, from our colleagues in the USA, wanting to use the code, but also having some great ideas. So the first thing we agreed on was to go with the benevolent dictatorship model for taking care of our code, making sure that nothing would break when it would do a pull request. Benevolent dictatorship, you ask me. This is the definition. Excuse me while I read from there, because my pregnancy brain just doesn't store all these definitions fully. But a benevolent dictatorship is a government in which an authoritarian leader exercises absolute power over the state, but is perceived to do so with regard for benefit of the population as a whole. And this is true because it's from Wikipedia. And to be fair, when I first read this, I laughed a bit, because I think every dictator in the world thinks he or she is a benevolent dictator. However, our team really is benevolent, right? They do it for the population as a whole, making sure that the quality stays high. And this really happened because if you're not paying attention, the connectivity subscription might be thrown away accidentally if you're not being a good benevolent dictator. But this is the model it shows. And in practice, this means that when a pull request was done on this code base in GitHub, at least 2 people from the Albert Heijn Cloud DevOps team, so the team that originally developed the code, had to approve the pull request before it could get merged. And now we're here, right, with colleagues in Belgium and the USA, with some great ideas. No history with the code yet, but much interest and many questions, and some very confusing pull requests received, and some great ideas and no place to go to with those ideas. So basically, to the Albert Heijn Cloud DevOps team, after a couple of weeks, they looked like this guy, totally overwhelmed, getting many questions over chat in ad hoc meetings, and the predictability of their sprints went down. I just said I'm an agile lead within the cloud services cluster. This is a red flag for me, predictability going down. So we had to come up with a solution here. How do we structure this collaboration between the teams? I'm going to tell you about the innersource model that we developed next. If you recognize some things, yes, we used the Kubernetes project as an inspiration. We are creatives, but not that creative. But you have to, we tried to customize it for our needs, right, within Albert Heijn. And such an innersource model basically exists out of 3 components. First out of 3 being the horizontal special interest groups. And for special interest groups, I will now say 6 because it saves time. We'll just call them 6, and when I say 6, it's a special interest group. So basically, a horizontal special interest group is a group, basically a forum for people with a specific interest for the broad quality of the product in terms of architecture, in terms of automation, and in terms of security. And you might recognize these forums as being basically some standard roles you will find in an IT department, which is true. These are groups of people that gather however often they want to, and when you join one of the architecture meetings, you will meet a specialist architect cloud from the Albert Heijn Cloud DevOps team, but everyone is welcome. So this is your place to go if you have great ideas. These forums basically lay the guardrails for the product, but sometimes when you want to have a new feature, you need to deviate from that. And you need approval from security, or you need alignment with security. You want someone to make sure that your choice of deviating is safe, for instance. So that would be a reason to join these 6. And with 6, I mean right, groups of people that join in whatever setup they like. In practice, for the architecture meeting, these guys meet 2 times a week, once for the decisions or agenda points that only will impact the Dutch corporation, and once a week for the global product. So any agenda items, it's an open agenda, anyone can put their decisions on there, or their proposals on there, thank you, that might have global impact. There is a responsibility though in these 6. They have to make sure that when an agenda item is, when a proposal is on the agenda that potentially impacts the product globally, they have to make sure that the people impacted are involved there as well. But that's what they do in their meetings. They set the guardrails, and they deviate from it based on the proposals, but they decide as a group. And they do have to have mandate, and that's why the specialist architect is there, or you will find a security officer in the horizontal special interest group for security. What they also do is they basically guide the people in the second component of an inner source model, which is the vertical special interest group, or the vertical SIG. This is basically where the product comes alive. These are also forums. These are groups of people gathered from all over the organization with a special interest in, for instance, AKS, for the containerization SIG. They might have business requests. You might be an engineer from Ethos, just as an example, right? And Ethos might have a business feature request, and you'll say, yeah, that's a cool thing, I want to deliver that. However, I have a dependency with the cloud framework for a certain functionality. And in the old days, you would go to the product owner of the cloud DevOps team and ask him, hey, I need this feature, can you put it on the backlog? And then, fingers crossed, you wait. And it might happen that you wait, and you wait. And with these vertical SIGs, you don't have to anymore. Basically, what these groups do is they gather, they have full autonomy to do any meeting they like. But there's always someone from the code maintainer team in there, one dictator, to be frank, who can share his or her in-depth knowledge from the product, and also help you guide on the feature that you want to deliver. Basically, if you have a desire, he or she can tell you what's already there, what's cooking, and also the best way to go. And you might also meet a colleague from, I don't know, Delhaize, a Belgian colleague that is working, that's accidentally or coincidentally working on the same business functionality, and you might team up. And this is how global collaboration exists. So for our cloud framework, this is basically a free format for any product you want to inner source. So for our cloud framework, we've chosen so far to establish a containerization SIG, one for databases and one for the policy framework. But these can be, there can be as many as you want, and they're custom-made per product. And anyone can establish one as long as there's always someone from the group of dictators in there with the in-depth knowledge of the product. So this is the second component of our inner source model. And then we have a third one. And now I need you to use your imagination again. I don't know why this happens. It did work before, but yeah. Again, there's a Belgian flag. We know that one. There's a Dutch flag in the middle, and there is a USA flag in the middle, or in the right. Can't be both in the middle. Thanks for using your imagination. So basically, this is the third component, which is the steering committee, which sounds very formal. It shouldn't be so. Never be formal. Doesn't matter where you are in the organization. But this group contains people that are product managers, so they have managerial responsibility for the product that you're inner sourcing. And what we expect from the steering committee is that they align on a long-term vision and strategy for this product. And also important, you wouldn't think so, but sometimes within our organization, we don't really align in the SIGs. We can have discussions and we don't seem to get to a decision as a group. This is where you go. There's an open agenda here for the steering committee. You go there, you raise it as a topic. This is the discussion we're having, and we need someone to take the decision for us because we can't get out of it. That's what the steering committee does as well. So basically, in this way, they're trying to encourage global collaboration as well. Third component, indeed. And then everything comes together. This is your...
And the flags work. Amazing.
Wow. Makes my day, really. So this is where it all comes together, really comes together, including flags. So you have the horizontal SIGs there, guarding a vision and a strategy for very specific topics there, with specialists in there. And also, if you want to deviate from that strategy for a specific reason, this is where you go with your proposal. The meetings are open. I think I didn't mention that yet, but if I say open meetings, it's basically a Teams link gathered in a specific page. Everyone can go to that meeting if you like. Then you have the vertical SIGs, where the fun happens, where the engineers are with a very specific interest into a specific piece of the product and collaborate there to deliver nice functionality. And then above it all, you have the steering committee taking care of the long-term vision and strategy and making sure that they respond to escalations in time. So why should you start doing this? What are the advantages? Well, for starters, you have the contributors. And instead of waiting for some of your backlog items to be picked up by the team, you now have the opportunity to collaborate with someone with in-depth knowledge of the product, maybe a colleague that's delivering the same business functionality. You will have skills faster, and you will be able to hopefully deliver your business feature faster. So there's a lot to get out of this if you're a contributor to the code. Then we have the maintainers, aka the dictators. What's in it for them? Well, they have more capacity in their team, so their product will grow faster, and they don't have to worry about things breaking down because they still have full control over the quality by the benevolent dictator model that we inserted here. And then you have, of course, the company Ahold Delhaize. I think this might be a struggle for every big corporate with people working in IT all over the world. Basically, you don't want people to reinvent the wheel in the USA and in Belgium and in Czech for Czech Republic for whatever reason. You basically want the wheel to be there already because someone in the Netherlands invented it, and then use that capacity to think about, okay, how can we make this wheel nicer and faster and quicker? That's the thing you're reaching with this inner source model. Also, if you choose to implement it, you might also want to somehow monitor the success rate of it. So he's going to tell you a bit about that and about how we are doing that at Albert Heijn.
Yes, because, let's talk numbers, I wrote down. Before we implemented this, and what Marjan already told you, they went to the PO and we did all the code changes and the work. And with we, I mean my team, the cloud DevOps team from the Netherlands. And that's what you see on the left. And then when we implemented this a few months ago, you saw that, it was going to change. And it was a really nice, really nice view. So how we measured this was by scraping all the data from GitHub pull requests and seeing, well, who does what amount of pull requests and how are we collaborating with each other. And I have to tell you as well is that the orange bit on the right with the Netherlands is not only our cloud DevOps team, the central team. It's also teams or collaborations from Ethos or from Gal and Gal. So it's a bit more detailed, but for the nice, clear overview, I wanted to show you how it looks now. So it's, I think, really successful already after a few months of implementation. But it's not all rainbows and unicorns, unfortunately.
It's not. If after this you think, oh yes, let's go, hold your horses. We have some mistakes we made to share so that you don't make them. First one being is to make sure that the 6 meetings are probably facilitated. Like I said already, each SIG is allowed to set up as many meetings as they like, but there's a pitfall there because it makes sense to think that, all right, so each SIG at least contains one specific person, an architect in the architecture SIG, but also a code maintainer in every vertical SIG. So it makes sense to think, okay, those people will probably know what to talk about in those SIG and structure those meetings. Don't do it, because these people need to focus on the content of the meeting, and you want someone to take care of the agenda of the meeting and make sure that decisions are properly documented, the agenda is properly updated, and conversations are also time kept. So don't make this mistake. Make sure that, especially in the beginning, You set expectations for meeting, because if you don't, people will feel like they're wasting time in the sessions and don't show up anymore. Lesson number 1. Lesson number 2, very important, I think, for everyone here. Show your appreciation to your contributors. Don't let them wait 7 days until you approve their pull request, which they're super, super proud of. Keep an eye on that approval time as well. Nothing is much more discouraging than pushing your ID, being proud, looking forward to it being approved, and then nothing. Keep an eye on it. And also you can take this a step further. We're now thinking about all those cool merchandise, t-shirts, etc. But, and if I have to draw a dream scenario for myself, I would really like a contributor to be such a good contributor in a vertical SIG that we can promote him to become an approver as well and become part of the dictator group, which is an honor, apparently. And the third lesson is that you shouldn't skip any chance to talk about this inner source model within your organization, because every person you miss venting this to and making him or her aware of the existence of these vertical SIGs might be missing out on a great contribution. So that's it. Now you can go ahead, think of a great product and start inner sourcing it. And what we say at Albert Heijn after each meeting that we end, we wish everyone
happy coding.
Happy coding.